Alright, so these are going to be the solutions to your quiz. And the first question was, which one of these systems is the easiest to solve by substitution? And if we look, C was the right answer, and that's because C has that X right there, which is very easy to isolate. Okay? Second question was, in order to solve this system, 3x minus 4y is equal to 5, 4x plus 2y is equal to 10, what do we need to do? And if we look, if we multiply the second equation by 2 and then add, that middle term of y will go away, because if we multiply the second equation by 2 we get 4y, and then negative 4y plus 4y cancels. The next question was, we were given this graph with two lines, so a system, and the point of intersection looked like it was around 80, 45 roughly. So we had a whole bunch of choices, and both B and D ended up being correct. And the reason why is because that 45 there, I said roughly, that 45 might have been a 46. From the scale, we can assume that 46 is right. If I gave you a better scale, then you might not think 46, but it looked like 46 was right. So we would have chosen B and D both at that time. And the next question was, we have a triangle two angles add up to 180 degrees. So if they add up to 180, that's x plus y is equal to 180. And then the next clue was, one side is 30 less than twice the other side. So that is the matching equation for that. So there's our two equations. So number 5 was to solve this system. And the best way to go would have been to take that second equation and rearrange it so that y is equal to 3 minus 4x. Now we can take that 3 minus 4x and sub it in for y. And we can get the next equation, which is x plus 2. And then instead of y here, we would have our 3 minus 4x, and then plus 1. And if we expand and simplify, we get x plus 6 minus 8x plus 1 is equal to 0. And now we just collect like terms. So there's x minus 8x. That's going to be 7. And we're also going to have 6 plus 1, and that'll be 7. So negative 7x plus 7 is equal to 0. And then we subtract 7 from both sides. And we end up with negative 7x is equal to negative 7. And then we divide both sides by negative 7, and we get x is 1. Now we're not completely done, because we need to figure out what y is, and we can use that equation there and say that y is equal to 3 minus 4x, where x is 1. So 3 minus 4, which is negative 1. And we're pretty happy about that. Alright, so there's number 5. B, the two equations were y minus x plus 1 is equal to 0, and y is 9 minus x. And we need to graph that. So what we're going to do is, we'll see in the first equation that the x-intercept is 1, so we'll plot that. The y-intercept is negative 1, we'll plot that, and that gives us our line. The second equation is already in y equals mx plus b, so we see that m is negative 1 because the coefficient on the x is negative 1. B is 9 because that's the y-intercept, and so we can plot the y-intercept. We can plot some more points with a slope of negative 1, so down 1 over 1, and there's our line. And finally, to solve the system, we need the point of intersection. It's right there. Looks like it's 4, 5. So we can write our solution as x is 4 and y is 5. Now we're pretty happy about that. So let's look at another example, another question. C has some fractions in it. So in that first equation, if we want to get rid of fractions, we want to multiply by the common denominator, and the common denominator is 2. So if we want to multiply everything by 2, if we do x times 2, we get 2x, y times 2 over 2 is just y, and 5 times 2 over 2 is 5. So there's our next equation. And in the bottom, the common denominator would be 6. So we'd multiply everything by 6, and 6x over 2 is 3x, 6y over 3 is 2y, and 6 times 2 is 12 over 3 is 4. So there's our two equations here. And now what we need to do is we need to either eliminate or substitute. And we can take this equation and isolate y pretty easily. So one way to go is substitution. And then we can take that and sub it in for y. And what we end up with is rewriting 3x minus 2y, but instead of y, we're going to write 5 minus 2x is equal to 4. Then we expand and simplify, collect like terms. So 3x plus 4x, that's 7x. And this negative 10, we're going to have to add 10 to both sides. And that's where we get this 14. And then we're going to divide both sides by 7. So we get x is 2. And then we need to use that information and the equation up where it says y is equal to 5 minus 2x and sub it in, and we get y is 5 minus 2 times 2, which is y is 5 minus 4, which means y is 1. And there's that one. So let's look at the last question. 0.3x plus 0.2y is equal to 0.5, and 0.5x minus 0.4y is 0.1. So the easiest way to go is to multiply the top equation by 2, because then we're making the y coefficients equal each other. So if we take the top and multiply it by 2, this is what we get. And we'll just rewrite the bottom one. And now we have plus 0.4 minus 0.4y. So that means that we need to add the two equations together to make those variables go away. So adding the x's, we get 1.1x, y's go away, and 1 plus 0.1 is 1.1. So we divide both sides by 1.1, and we get x is 1. And now we can take that x is 1 and pick either one of those two equations. I picked the top one, and sub it in. We get this, and then we have to isolate y. So we subtract 0.3 from both sides. We get 0.2y is equal to 0.2. Divide both sides by 0.2, and we get y is 1. So we have x is 1, y is 1, and that's it. That's your quiz.